that's what our next steps are, is to bring this to the council, let the leaders of the congregation discuss it, and mull it over and contemplate it, and then they would bring a recommendation or the next step to the voters. So, and with that, I guess we'll start with questions.
Just on now? Okay. All right, if anybody has any, remember, ladies who participate here too, if anybody has any questions or comments, just raise your hand and I'll call on you and Pastor Wilkie will bring the microphone over to you. Over here, Pastor Wilkie.
At the risk of asking questions, probably obvious, but in that school renovation, that $3.27 million, now did that include addressing the energy issues that you talked about?
It does. It would be basically taking out all of the existing window wall and putting it back in with a new energy efficient system, new roof, new insulation of the roof, that kind of thing, including expanded daylighting into the classrooms.
You must have done a great job. You guys are really good. Right here.
You probably said this in your presentation, but what would the square footage be with the renovation at church? The total square footage?
Total square footage, I think right now you have about, I'm trying to remember what's the square footage of this existing building. It's about 5,000, 6,000 square feet, something like that.
Probably per floor.
Yeah.
Probably 12 to 15,000 total.
And then we're adding another 6,700. So if we have about 12 total, you're pushing around 20,000, not quite.
And what is it if we build new at the school?
Totally, it's about 20,000.
Thank you.
This is a question about the school. Right now, most of the classrooms have first, second together, third, fourth. What would happen in the event that the school population starts to grow and you've got those dedicated rooms? Now all of a sudden you need more classrooms.
Yeah. There, again, you can add more classrooms. If you go back to the slide, it's pretty easy to add more classrooms on next to that band room if you wanted to, where those two new classrooms would be added. That would be the way you would want to expand. If your population would double, it would basically change the paradigm. You'd have to probably look at some other solution, because I don't know that there's enough room in the existing configuration to double the population size.
Yeah.
I noticed that, well, two questions. First of all, you mentioned that the church would seat, what, about 450 is what you were thinking? But the parking, you said, 175, so I'm kind of wondering about the discrepancy in numbers. And then the second question is, was it, you mentioned a lot of issues with the school. Was any thought given to maybe replacing the school, or don't you think it's really at that point?
I'll answer the last question first. The question about should we replace the school. We actually didn't look at that as an option. We weren't directed to look at that as an option. We certainly could do it. It was certainly came up in the focus group sessions and actually on the congregation surveys, but not high vote getters. So we didn't really pursue that one, I think, based upon that kind of direction. The second question about parking, we could probably actually get, up to 200 spaces on the site, maybe a little bit more, but you're confined to your site too. If you would do more parking on site than that, then all of a sudden you'd be taking space away from the playground area also. And so it's kind of a balance there. It's simply a space available.
So you were talking about 175 parking spaces, 175 cars, not parking for 175 people, which I think is the way it was understood.
Oh, okay, no cars, yes.
And generally, if you can hear me without a mic, we look at about a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio for parking to church seating. Some people come to church 1 person in the car, but some people come to church with 4 or 5 people in the car. So generally, if you have a church seating 400 or 500 people, you'd be looking somewhere from 150 to 200 cars for a church of that capacity.
And parking like seating is always one of those interesting, you know, how much do you build for it? You know, do you put a seat in your sanctuary for every single member of your congregation for those 1 or 2 times when it may happen? You know, it probably isn't worth the money, and the same thing goes with parking also.
Just a question regarding this site here. If the congregation did choose to move the church, what would happen to this site? Any thoughts?
That you would have to address to the building committee. The question was, what would happen with this site if you would decide to build a new building? Has that been given any thought or much discussion?
When you guys want to take the questions?
About that question, well, if we remove this site, let's say that we built a new church by school, well, we rebuild this building. As you build a new building, you want to tie old things with the new. We're told some of these windows could be removed and taken to the new building. That leaves a hole in the wall here. It's 6 of one, a half dozen the other. If we left everything here, what would somebody do with it? Your guess is as good as mine. What could you get for it? There again, same thing, I wouldn't know. For ourselves, I'm sure we would want to take some of the items from in this building and tie them in with a new building. That would be good for all. Some people are a little hesitant about change. This would certainly be wonderful to have some artifacts or parts of the old building incorporated into the building. There again, that leaves a hole here. What do you do? We didn't pursue it too far because there were a lot of avenues we could have gone. We had to choose a couple ways to go to get the ball rolling, and that is what we chose. If directed, I suppose it could be pursued, you know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
I just don't know how to say this, but I think we're at the wagon before the horse. Where's the money coming from? We have no fund, we have no building fund. Aren't we stepping off into an awful deep hole? Is any thought been given to that? You know, talk is cheap, but it's going to cost money. Our income isn't too high right now. By the week, it's falling, falling.
It's a great question. One thing we have to consider is this. What are we here for? What are we looking to do? We're looking to see how we